Have you ever looked at a CEO's paycheck and just thought, how? How does a number get that big? Well, today, we're not just going to wonder. We're going to take one of those massive paychecks, pull it apart piece by piece, and figure out the machine that builds it.
$47 million. Just let that sink in for a moment. This isn't a lottery jackpot. It's the proposed 2025 pay package for one single person, David Solomon, the CEO of the investment giant Goldman Sachs.
And that, right there, is the big question, isn't it? It's what we're really digging into today. How on earth can one person's leadership be valued this high? Is it totally justified? Or is it a sign that the system is kinda broken? Let's find out.
Okay, so to get our heads around this, we first have to look at what's actually inside that $47 million package.
So if you look at this breakdown, you'll see it's not what you might think. The guaranteed part, his salary, is actually a pretty small slice of the pie, just $2 million. The vast majority of it, we're talking over 70%, is tied up in things like equity. His pay is designed to be directly linked to how well the company does. He wins when the shareholders win.
So why the huge raise? Well, the board will point you directly to these numbers. Goldman had an absolutely killer year in 2025. Revenues shot up 16%, pre-tax earnings exploded by 71%, and shareholders saw a return of over 50%. The argument is simple. The company knocked it out of the park, so the CEO gets a big reward.
And this chart is the perfect example of that pay-for-performance idea in action. You can see that during the tougher years, from 2022 to 2023, his pay was way lower. Then, when the company hit a home run in 2025, his pay soared right along with it. It's a direct link.
But look, this isn't just about David Solomon. Let's zoom out a bit, because what's happening here is part of a much bigger system. We need to decode the theories that have been driving executive pay for decades.
This chart, wow, this tells the whole story, doesn't it? Since 1978, CEO pay has gone up by almost 1,500%. Meanwhile, pay for the average worker has barely moved. This massive, massive gap is really at the heart of the whole debate. So what in the world happened?
Well, a huge part of the answer is something called agency theory. It sounds complicated, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It says that if you pay the CEO in stock, then that CEO, the agent, is going to be motivated to do things that make the stock price go up. And, well, that's exactly what shareholders want, right?
The other big justification you'll hear is the superstar theory. Think about it like sports. The argument goes that there's only a tiny handful of people on the planet who can run a huge, complex company like Goldman Sachs. And just like sports teams fight over the best players, corporations get into bidding wars for these superstar CEOs, which drives their pay through the roof.
Okay, that's all the theory, but let's bring this back down to what really matters. What does all this mean for you, for the everyday investor?
It's the most obvious question, right? You see a $47 million paycheck, and you have to wonder, hey, is that money coming out of my pocket? Is that my share of the profits?
But here's the twist. The answer might really surprise you. The direct financial hit is tiny. For a massive company, the CEO's entire compensation is often just 1/100th of 1% of the yearly profits. So from a pure numbers perspective, it barely even makes a dent.
And that's what this all boils down to. The debate isn't really about whether a company can afford this. Clearly they can. The real debate is an ethical one. It's about fairness and what kind of message it sends when the pay gap is getting wider and wider.
So, with that in mind, let's talk about what this means for you. By the way, if you're enjoying this breakdown, it would mean a lot if you'd subscribe for more. This is just our humble effort to decode these complex topics, and it's so important to remember, this is not financial advice, it's just for educational purposes.
Now that we've got the lay of the land, what can you actually do about it? What are the practical, smart takeaways for you as an investor?
Here's a simple 3-step playbook. First, check the governance. Every year, shareholders get a say on pay vote. Look it up in the company's filings. It's a great way to see what other investors think. Second, diversify. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Low-fee ETFs are great for this because one company's weird decisions won't wreck your whole portfolio. And third, and this is a big one, vote your proxies. You're an owner. You have a voice. Use it.
And that leaves us with one final, really big question to chew on. The whole system is built on this idea that pay follows performance. But are we measuring the right things? Should performance only be about the stock price? Or should we also be looking at things like employee happiness, customer loyalty, or the company's long-term impact on the world?
We would honestly love to know what you think about that down in the comments. And hey, if you found this explainer valuable, please do subscribe. Seriously, knowing you're out there watching gives us all the motivation we need to keep making these.
And just one last time, our official disclaimer, this content is for educational purposes only. It's not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold anything, and this channel won't be responsible for any losses you might incur. Please always talk to your own financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Thanks for hanging out with us today.